My shit's trying to pick up Wi-Fi in here.
Yeah, it should be good. And we should be good. It should be live. Let's see. And this is the camera over here, by the way. So it's facing you guys, because too many people minding me. They'll start showing up. They see me.
I knew that Vato was still alive.
Yeah. I thought he died. Like, and we should be good. Hello, everybody. Spotted here at the 5 Car Podcast, man. Coming to you from San Antonio. We are in the downtown area, of course. I've got some guests today. Returning guests, Zachary, man. I mean, Borrego, of course, with us. Let us know who's with you today, man.
Yeah, so I brought my wrestling coach, Chris Herrera. We just got done working out, getting a session in. And I guess if you want to explain your accolades.
Oh, man. How much time you got?
Fucking gangster. First one is a gangster.
Just professional gangster.
The OG.
And as far as I mean, I have you on Facebook. I mean, I read as far as what you post and people you train with, man. I mean, who are some of the, just to name a few, because I know you got a long list, man, but who are some of the people that you've trained with in the past?
Yeah, since moving out here, I used to be at Ultimate Submission Academy. Used to train with Ray Rodriguez, Eddie Herrera, Gordy. I met Zach. We've been working together now.
Coming up on a year.
Almost a year, yeah. And I work with Anthony and Dimitri, Ivy, a lot of the BTT guys.
Right.
I mean, I've kind of just always kind of put out there, open door, anyone who wants to train, because when COVID happened, I have my garage, so I'm just like, hey, guys, let's get together and train. Yeah. So, but yeah, I try and work with as many people as I can, always trying to get different looks, you know?
No, for sure, man. I mean, being a coach and, of course, I mean, training with different people, man, you got to be picking up stuff yourself, right?
Yeah, because I'm a bit different. Most coaches, only, I guess, kind of sit back and coach, but I mean, because I still like to train, so I kind of use it as a time to get my workout.
No, for sure, man, definitely.
So it kind of works out both ways.
Now, I mean, as far as people, you're coming from way of California?
Yeah, originally I'm from Houston, but I moved here in like the middle of 2019.
Damn.
From Oceanside, yeah.
And what were you doing out there, man?
I was in the Marines, and I got out in 2009 and decided to just pursue fighting full time. So I joined Team Quest out there, and was out there ever since, just training, fighting, and then with the economy, it just kind of made a little more sense to move over here this way.
Yeah. I think you brought everybody with you, right?
Now I see all the Californians are coming out.
No, and I mean, of course, you were saying, I mean, you were training with Team Quest. Who are some of the names out there that you were you got to train with?
Originally, Dan Henderson was like the leader of the gym, main guy, but we had like Sokaju, Christoph Straczynski, who else? Luke Rockhold used to come through, Musasi. I mean, when Dan was fighting actively, he used to bring in all kinds of guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, cross-train himself, right?
Yeah. And Sam Alvey's still out there. He's active in the UFC, but he doesn't. Dan doesn't retire in a while now, so he doesn't train as much. But he's kind of sticks around at the gym.
No, for sure, man. And let me say this, man. I mean, bringing up retirement. I mean, of course, nobody can fight forever. Why did you stop competing? Because you were a competitor yourself.
Yeah, my last fight was in 2017, and I just had a bunch of injuries, 5 knee surgeries. Just kind of starting to get burned out of it,
No, I can imagine, man. I mean, you served in the Marines. How many years?
6 years.
6 years. And of course, I mean, I asked because you said you were at one. You're still out there with Ray training?
I go over there here and there, but I live closer to BTT, so it's just kind of drive-wise, it makes a little sense. But like we go and train, we still train cross back and forth.
No, and like you said, you still got some fight in you, so of course you got to mix it up and put these guys to the
still got to test these youngsters.
No, and I mean, you were training this morning with Zach. What were you guys working on?
Just some grappling situations, just live rolls, a little bit of scenarios.
And of course, bro, you got that fight coming up, man. I mean, how many days? Like 10 days, 11 days?
I think we're a little bit 9 days, maybe 10, 9, 10, something like that.
That's on a Sunday, right? Of course, Fury FC.
Yeah.
And I always ask fighters, man, because I mean, for not, I guess just for everybody, that there's muscle memory. So I mean, on Sundays you are sparring, you're out there training, right?
Yeah, I've been. This past weekend, we had a hard sparring session on Saturday, so we laid off on Sunday just to relax. But 2 weekends ago, 3 weekends ago, we've been doing a lot of sparring on Sunday. Just to get the
And I
body
always
used to
ask
it.
fighters, man, because even going cross state or fighting outside the country, man. I mean, there's got to be a time clock to your body where people are used to bumming on Sundays and not doing anything, man. So I mean, it's just kind of awkward for people to wake up and be like, "Shit, I got to fight today, man. It's Sunday, bro."
Yeah, especially because that's usually everyone's rest day, you know.
Yeah, exactly, man. And that's
yeah.
kind of like, I guess, mentally. I mean, but right now you're ready though. Mentally, physically, you look good, man. So
Appreciate that. Yes.
what weight are you walking at right now?
That's undisclosed. We can't put that out. But Gino for sure is helping me stay right, and I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
No, you see, and I like that, man, because of course, I mean, Gino, we were talking earlier, man. I mean, the fact that he's helping you with the meals. I mean, he's a scientist at what he does, man. I mean, Gino, let me ask you, bro.
Got them in the truck right now, actually.
Let's go. Eat.
They're waiting for him. Yeah.
But man, I mean, you were telling me earlier, man. I mean, the way you came across this, I mean, you've been, a chef. You've been cooking, messing with the cells as far as gym.
That's it.
You're
Food and
everywhere,
fitness
man.
is all I know. So I'm literally food and fitness. I feel is like all I know. So.
And when it comes to meals, it's not just a matter of me making eggs and putting bologna on there, bro. I mean, there's a science to it, right?
Well, I haven't had that in a long
I
time.
know. I'm craving that. I'm hungry, bro. That's why I brought that up.
Eggs
man.
and bologna, bro. Mexican round steak.
Oh, yeah. There you
Dog,
go,
that
man.
sounds good.
Should
Some
block
fried
y'all out.
bologna.
It's more like a ribeye.
Some fried bologna and a sandwich and toast. Yeah, okay.
But how do you go about with the calorie intake? I mean, you take a look at all that.
So yes, now I do. I just kind of injected myself into the combat community, I guess. It hasn't really been that long. I suck at like time frames, so I mean maybe 2 years. I don't know, maybe 3 years. Maybe 3 years. Yeah, maybe 3 years or more. So for the first, when I launched LionFitFoods, it was just simply for the objective to provide people with health conscious meals that they would typically eat on a normal basis, and just put like a healthy spin to them. So it was fun. It wasn't like boring and bland and like chicken and broccoli all the damn time. So I didn't, I had the reason I launched it, like I said earlier, is because my buddy Sean Sykes was on television shows like I think like American Ninja Warrior and the one with like the wrestler dude Stone Cold. And he needed like to get fuel for those, and so like that basically launched me into like, well, I'm gonna cook for you, or he asked me to cook for him, and then it kind of gave me the idea. But I never planned on working with athletes. It was just basically the general community. And then I needed an outlet, or to get back my outlet, which originally was boxing, for my like ADD and short temper and all these other things. So I started working with I think it was Ray first, over at USA for when it came to fuel. No, I'm lying. It was some pro boxers over at Leja Boxing.
Oh, okay.
So I was working with the Lejas, and then from the Lejas, I started working with a couple pro boxers like Kendo Tremendo and Joseph and Mario Barrios and, tons of other ones. So that kind of got me into the combat community, and then I kind of started getting more into MMA, and then Ray, of course, owning USA, was like, come to do jiu-jitsu, and I was like, fuck that, I'm not trying to get on the ground with anybody. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just want to box, bro. Like, I thought I was like, yeah, I just want to box. I got hands, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyways, got into the MMA community and started thinking, well, I can start learning the science behind this, because these fighters just can't eat anything all the time. So then at that point, I'm always big on like self-educating and constantly reading and stuff like that. So I just started self-educating myself on understanding the science and putting my body through it as well. Started training in combat, doing jiu-jitsu, doing full MMA, started working with Chris, started understanding how my body was reacting to specific foods, and then working with basically trial and error with fighters and be like, hey man, this is what I know, this is what I've done so far, how does this work? It was really with boxers at first. And that kind of helped me hone in on some skills and understanding like things behind it. And like I said, with the general education of me basically kind of like buying books, attending seminars online, whatever the case is, learning about things like the Dolce diet and stuff like that, like just kind of constantly educating myself. combining that with, like I said, putting my own body through it and then working with the guidance of the fighters, I've slowly honed in on it. I'm nowhere near where I want to be with it. I would say I'm like 30% of where I want to be, even though it's already been a couple of years, you know. So I think just constantly kind of staying in the combat community, I'll have the ability to just hone those skills and really get down and dial down in on people's diets for the combat community in general. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
You see, and something like this, man, I mean, of course, you mentioned earlier, it's not just for people like fighters. I mean, it's for everyday people. It's for business people that don't have time to, or don't want to make time to sit
like
down
my business in general?
Right.
Oh, yeah, my business in general is for the general community. But selfishly, I like working with combat fighters. Like if I could, I would eventually just progress my business into specifically working with the combat community from a fitness and food aspect. I would just kind of like specialize myself in that area where I would say I want eventually to get to the point where it's like if you want to strengthen condition or you need a nutritional plan and you're in the combat community, I'm the person to go to. Like that's where I want to take my business to. Of course, you know, for money purposes, you got to continue to work with the general community, but eventually, especially because it's so saturated right now. Like everybody, their moms and their aunts and their tias and their uncles, everybody has a fucking meal prep company right now.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's like I'd love to get away from that and just specialize on just the combat community in general. Not even really just all athletes, just combat athletes. So hopefully in time, you know, over the next 3-4 years, I can kind of move in that direction. We'll see what happens.
No, yeah, man. And I mean, San Antonio's blown up so much, man. There's a lot of gyms popping up. I mean, so of course, there's always somebody competing and having the fight coming up.
There is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And let me ask you, bro, what's your favorite meal so far, man? What has he hooked you up with that?
Yeah, what is your favorite meal?
I remember he makes some really interesting pancakes, and every time I eat them, man, I'm like, there's no way this is healthy. Like, I'll text and I'm like, are you sure you gave me like healthy pancakes?
That's like the thing I hear the most from everybody. Is like, I hear two things from everybody, right? It's like, bro, you sure this is healthy? Like, okay, well, first of all, like I make health conscious food, so let's like zone in on those, right? Health conscious foods, right? I don't like get crazy dirty down and like vegan it up and all this stuff, but I make everything like substitutions and health conscious, right? So yes, for the most part, 85 to 95% of it is healthy, of course. But I hear that the most so much, and it always trips me out because I'm like, yeah, that's my job is to like make you feel that way. You know what I mean? I make you feel like, fuck, is this really healthy? Like I want the food to be that good to where you're like, there's no fucking way this can be healthy. But so I started making videos and like showing people what I would actually do because people would be like, I make like a protein cheesecake and people are like, there's no fucking way this is healthy. I'm like,
I saw that, bro.
I like let me show you. This is how I do it. Like so you can see exactly what I do and this is what you're consuming versus an actual cheesecake. And then I always hear like, oh man, this tastes like it's like from a restaurant. I'm like, well, yeah, that's the fucking point, chef, bro. Like,
yes,
that's the fucking point, bro. Like,
and I gotta ask you, bro, because as far as a lot of it has to do with portion control, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's closer to fight time, of course.
Yeah, huge in general, just for eating, period, bro.
Right.
Like we live in San Antonio. Nobody fucking cares about portions.
No,
you know?
no, man.
Everybody is gluttonous and eats huge portions. So like that's a huge thing for my business. Is like people will hit me with like, hey man, out the gate I want to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, look, just slow down. Just order some meals. They're portion controlled.
Yeah. This one's for
That's
breakfast,
the hugest thing. That's the hugest thing that you can implement out the gate. It's just portion controlling your food. Because when you go to a restaurant, man, I don't go to restaurants too often anymore. But when I do, bro, they give you so much food. We're talking like 2 pounds of food per person. I'm like, I don't need to consume all this. Is like 4 meals for me.
Yeah.
You know? And so people don't realize that because they're so accustomed to that on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah.
So once you hit them with a portion control, they're like, no, this isn't enough food for me. I'm like, look, from a caloric and a nutrient-dense aspect, it is. It's all your body needs in order to provide you with fuel to get through your day. You're just so used to fucking being gluttonous and eating like 85 tacos.
Yeah.
You know? So so out the gate, like in general, that's a huge thing is portion control for everybody. For athletes, yes, like there is specific times that they should eat certain things depending on their workout schedule. Everybody is different when it comes to an athlete, depending on it. Really kind of their eating habits need to be outlined around their training schedule for the most part and their sleeping schedule. So there's a lot more science that goes into like feeding them if you really kind of dial in on it. But the general community just fucking needs to eat a little bit healthier and
Eat a little
and
less.
portion
Less,
control.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Like that's really all they need to do for starters.
No, for sure, man. I mean, Zach, man, how hard is it for you come fight week, man? Because you're dropping weight. So, I mean, how many meals are you having a day?
During fight week,
Right.
we'll probably have like 2 big ones, a breakfast and a dinner, and then some snacks in between. But it's gotten a lot easier, I think, for the most part. Drinking, because as you get closer to fight day, you start loading up your water a little bit, and so that kind of fills you up, and you're so focused on weigh-in day and the fight that it kind of outrules your hunger a little bit. But I definitely, man, if someone's like walking around with some canes or something, I'm like, oh my god, you gotta move away.
Bro, I've never had canes, man. Is that good?
Dude,
have you ever had it?
Yeah.
There's
never had it, yeah.
Raising Canes, right, or something like
Raising
that.
Canes.
There's one down the street from my house, and I always pass it by, like, because I teach a class at this place called Alpha Fitness, so I got to shoot down Fredericksburg from like USA Boulevard. I got to go down Fredericksburg, and there's like a Whataburger, and there's like a Raising Canes on this side, and I always pass it. I'm like, man, is that place good? It looks like it'd be really good.
After my fight, we gotta definitely go hit that up.
And I was going to ask you,
lunch,
man, what's your meal of choice, man?
After my fight, I need some Mexican food, man. I've been craving it big time. Honestly, some home cooking from Gran.
Oh, yeah,
That'll get me right, and then we'll probably hit up some mi tierra, some Mama Margie's. We'll go to.
And this is all that one day, right?
Nah,
We'll spread the love.
There you go. And bro, I mean, Chris, man, I mean, you've been in the fight game for so long, man. I mean, would you agree that it's part of the fight? Come fight week, man, it's a mental game. So if you can't make that, then I mean, you're losing the fight, man.
I've seen so many times where guys are like super talented, they have a good camp, not injured, but something maybe happens that week or even the day of. As soon as that you start getting the mental stuff, it doesn't matter like how gifted you are, because it'll come out there when you're in the cage, And then it goes vice versa. I've seen guys where maybe they just got off the couch and they took a short notice fight, but mentally they're on point. Go out there and do their thing. So I think the mental aspect is huge.
And I mean, for you, what weight class were you competing in?
Mostly 185, just because that's when I was on Bellator, that's the contract they gave me, and they're Bellator's kind of bad about mismatching, and but I was really at 170. So, but most of the fights, all 3 of my fights with them were at 85. So I didn't have to cut weight for that, but it was for 170. It was really tough for me to make.
You see, and that's a good point you brought up, man, because I've talked to other fighters from Bellator, and they say the same thing. Like they're like, no, I want you at this weight class, and it's just I don't know why they do that.
From my experience, they do these mismatches because they're trying to like bring up a certain guy. Like when my first fight with them, it was kind of short notice, and the guy was undefeated from King's MMA, and like a huge middleweight.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, hey, can you fight him? And I was like, realistically, it didn't make sense, but I was like, well, this will be my foot in the door, and I believed that, I could beat him. But, I mean, going in there, it's like the guy had an 80-inch reach, giant, and I was 9-1, on the betting, so they were, they knew what they were doing, but then I knocked him out.
I saw that.
and I'm like, oh, this will set me up, and then they give me another short 10-day notice fight, against middleweight again, and it just, I guess I just wasn't someone they wanted to build up.
No, man, and it happens, man, because even just with with COVID in general, man, when it was happening in 2019, the UFC, I mean, they were losing fighters to COVID and losing fighters outside the country, so they were picking up. I mean, it was a good opportunity for other fighters to get picked up, and they did.
Yeah, definitely. I think with COVID, kind of helped guys, get that short notice and get foot in the door. At least with UFC, I think they don't do the mismatch thing as bad as Bellator, and you get paid considerably more.
I would say with the UFC, from what I've noticed or gathered, man, is they have a lot more roster.
Yeah.
So they've got like 30, 40 people that are good, and they're just, they can actually match them up and get them ready, man. Because, I mean, and that's one thing I've noticed with Bellator too, man. There's not, I guess, the life expectancy of the fighter is not that long. I mean, there's fighters they keep because they're UFC veterans and they're former champions, but it's just like everybody else. They kind of seem to like they feed them too quick and then they're out before you know it, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's their business, so it's, they know what they're doing, I guess.
Yeah, they're making money.
No? And let me ask you, man. I mean, the workout this morning, man. You see, you're working in wrestling, man. How did he do, man?
Did good. He's came a long way since we started, like with just the whole ground game in general. He's really he even got a double leg his last fight. So he's definitely starting to get tough for me.
That's when you're gonna have to have him cut weight, and make him weaker, man.
I noticed, man, the other day or yesterday.
To
Yesterday we were doing a drill at Ultimate Submission. And I felt like I was doing pretty good, so you had to pull one out of the old man tricks and did like a footlock roll in. I'm like, well, you can't do that, dude.
You can't feed him everything, right?
No, of course not. I'm starting to
gotta keep some stuff in the pocket.
I'm pushing 40, so I gotta get tricky.
No, for sure, man. I know years back, man. I mean, I was training at one point. I mean, not at y'all's level when it came to fighting, but I was working out and doing, MMA and whatnot. But one of the things is I started working out with my girlfriend, right? And I hold the mids, and she started getting too good, man. I had to let's skip practice today, man, because you never know. That I don't want to wake up one day and be like, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. But I mean, as far as MMA, I mean, of course, mixed martial arts now it's a workout. I mean, it's not necessarily fighting. I mean, of course, people that are competing in it, but I mean, it's a full body workout, man. So I mean, people are doing it just to stay in shape and
break up, just going to the gym, doing your 30 minutes on the elliptical and lifting, it just gets boring for them.
No, for sure.
There's a lot of aspects of fitness that are implemented into fighting that people, I think, tend to ignore as well. That like fitness in general, they don't. A lot of fighters, I think, one of the huge things that we've seen like over the last few years is a lot of fighters, especially with like the Diaz brothers, have understood like the importance of like aerobic capacity and endurance training, like to be an athlete, which is huge because typically a lot of fighters are like fast twitch fighters and explosive and they work on their techniques in the gym all the time. They tend to ignore things like strength and conditioning and stuff like that, endurance training. So it's really cool to see a lot of that like being implemented now and like people understanding that. I think there's so many, I mean, fighting is like a science and an art, and there's so many aspects of it that I think it ignored that I've seen like kind of freaks me out when I've worked with fighters on both ends for food and fitness. And man, there's 8 out of 10 times when I'm working with a fighter on the fitness side, on the food side especially, but on the fitness side, to see how many things they have ignored for the duration for whatever like long their career has been going so far from a fitness perspective. I think a lot of fighters need to really focus on getting into the gym that it's sports specific style training and get away from like the bodybuilder style type training that typically they're really used to, like the old school methods, like go run and lift some weights. And a lot of fighters don't really lift weights actually, especially boxers. Boxers are cardio. Boxers hate fucking lifting weights, and I'm like, why? So many boxers, I've had boxers quit on me because they don't want to touch weights because they've been like pounded in their brain. These are young fighters that they've been pounded into them like don't pick up weights like you're not going to be able to cut weight if you lift weights and you get muscle.
Their weight cuts, they got some crazy ones, man.
Yeah, I mean, but more muscle you have, the less body fat you have, the higher your metabolism is. It's simple science. So I mean, there are one of the like pushbacks that I've heard about that is I just heard it the other day, was that they don't want to have too much muscle because they want to keep their weight high because they want to go through that big weight cut so they can be the bigger fighter in the fight, which is another fucking thing I don't understand, but I've never been an actual fighter, so I can't really understand it, but that's like one of the biggest objectives as well. So, but my point being that there are a lot of aspects of fitness that are applicable to fighting that I think are people are finally kind of getting involved into that are sports-specific combat style training, because you can train MMA from a fitness aspect to help improve like techniques, power, endurance, and things of that nature. Same thing with like boxing and stuff like that too. So I'm glad to see all that's happening now.
Well, it has changed, man, for a lot of reasons too, because one of the things, I mean, when I started training in MMA, it was in 2000, and it was, I'd go to the gym, lift weights, and then I'd go do kickboxing and grappling and whatnot. But I never really combined it. So it was like, I think it was 2 years later, and I ran into somebody that was a soccer player. He was playing for Cruz Azul, And I see him at the stadium, I go jog, and he's like, hey, man, you want to do some drills? And I'm like, yeah, man. And he put me to the ringer, bro. Like, I left out of there, and I was like, lateral drill, just speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing that a lot more, and I realized, like, I saw myself in the gym, and I was like, damn, dude, like, I mean, my boxing was good, my footwork, I had a stronger base, so I was able to, and it didn't hit me because I didn't have anybody telling me, like, hey, I mean, like they do now, man. They actually, I mean, Zach's, where everybody that's starting off now, or even a few years, they got good people behind them. I mean, telling them what to eat, telling them, what techniques to work on, and it's improved by a lot, bro. Because back then it was just like, okay, hit the bag, okay, go wrestle this guy. There was no in between.
Yeah, I think the coaching community in San Antonio, like I've always been around more boxing than anything, and I think like the coaching community in general, when it comes to combat sports, has really improved over the last like 6 or 7 years tremendously here in San Antonio. There's always been, I could name like a few guys who I've known who have been like strength and conditioning coaches for a long time, or specific like MIT coaches or boxing coaches or whatever, MMA coaches. But I think the caliber of individual has improved over the last like 6 or 7 years in San Antonio. That's really helping this current like generation of fighters be groomed and built into like moving into the future. And I think with associations like Fury and Peak, and a couple others that are coming to San Antonio, making a splash, as all that's going to come together. I think over the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot of fighters come out of San Antonio that are pretty strong, that can represent Texas pretty good. Because I don't know, I've had some conversations with people where they feel like kind of Texas really isn't on the map too much,
right,
especially like our city. And I think that that'll be changing here soon. I think everybody's kind of like in a toddler stage of the coaching, to where I talk about this a lot, like once everybody starts coming together and really honing their skills from a coaching aspect, I think it's going to draw a lot more fighters to our city, and kind of put us a little bit more on the map, I guess, for lack of a better term.
No, for sure, man. I mean, and I agree, because even now, like the difference from when I first started, training, and I mean, there wasn't that many gyms. I mean, now you've got good gyms that are actually cross-training, so I mean, of course, everybody's getting better. Mm-hmm. But it has changed for a lot of reasons, man. I mean, of course, meals coming in, I think that's great, because we talked about portion control, like, me, having my kids when they were little, man, my thing was like everybody ate and they wouldn't finish their food, so I would eat it. Mm-hmm. And so I was eating more than I was supposed to, but it was.
Yeah, I still do that shit.
Yeah, you see, and I'm like, I had to like actually after a while, I was just like, you know what, y'all order what y'all want, and I will wait, and then whatever they didn't eat, that was my meal.
Yeah.
So that was my portion control,
man. I still do that, man. Thick Boy Fight Club, shout out.
Thick Boy Fight Club.
And I gotta ask you, bro, as far as wrestling, I mean, how far did you get from wrestling? I mean, did it start with you sort of like middle school, high school?
Yeah, I started in high school, then wrestled for the Marine Corps on their Greco-Roman team. And then when I got out, I walked on at a college and ended up making the team. So then I wrestled there in California and was an All-American. And once I got into fighting, I kind of got away from wrestling because, I spent a lot of years doing it.
And I mean, of course, and I've quoted, fighters before, man. I think it was the late Kevin Randleman has said that the best for a wrestler, even a football player, man, that there's no other sport that they can substitute but other than MMA. It's got to be something where, you know, you go in there and you put a grind. I mean, they're so used to getting their ass beat early in the morning because, I mean, I can imagine wrestling drills did early. I mean, how early did you guys have to wake up?
Yeah, we had 6 a.m., was our conditioning practice, and then another practice in the afternoon. So it was pretty, I think that's why, honestly, did so much damage to my knees. I never really got hurt in MMA, but by the time I started, I was already pretty worn down.
For sure, and it happens because even I think it was Usman at one time. He said his knees hurt so bad or his feet, and it's just years of working out, and then now he's fighting, and it's I mean, some people retire because of it or they stop because it's just. I mean, your body can't do no more, man.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, bro. I mean, this is pretty much for everybody, but I mean, for yourself, man. When would it be a good time for somebody to say, okay, you know what? I mean, of course, injuries and.
I mean, honestly, the day that you get up and you're like, I don't really know if I want to do this anymore. You're probably about there, but injury wise, if you start having brain issues, any type of. If you've been starting getting knocked out, after a couple, definitely. It's you really have to start. just monitoring yourself, because a lot of times you don't see the damage from concussions or being knocked out till years later, so that's kind of what you're seeing nowadays, especially as the sport's evolving and you have higher level athletes becoming good strikers. They're doing a lot more damage now, so it's like, once you start taking those type of blows, and it's probably time to start
doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Start doing something.
Just start doing jiu-jitsu.
No, there you go. You see, and that's another thing that I realize, even the platforms. I mean, there's so many out there right now, man. I mean, jiu-jitsu is one of them. I mean, of course, they have gi, no gi. I mean, for yourself, man, I mean, are you competing in anything, or are you just...
I wouldn't start getting back into jiu-jitsu competition. I used to compete in jiu-jitsu a lot, but with fighting, I kind of got away from doing so much of the gi and stuff, because I've been doing jiu-jitsu now almost 13 years, so it's like I'd like to get back and compete maybe in the old man division, try and be a master world champ.
There you go, man. There you go. And Zach, man, the same thing, man. I mean, right now you're still young. I mean, you're gonna make your pro debut. I mean, do you see yourself having a long life in the sport? I mean, are you looking for like a career to actually pursue?
Yeah, God willing, I do see myself kind of shifting my career towards this, and I want that to happen. But same thing, I'm not dumb, and I know that it is a violent game, and if there's ever a point where it's like affecting my health in a negative way, I feel like I'd have the right people around me to kind of, tell me to look at things differently. But at this point, man, I'll be honest with you, I haven't even thought about that.
No, of course, man. I mean, you're making your pro debut for Fury FC, man, and then your opponent, man, you've had the same opponent, right? No, they haven't pulled from you?
Yeah, I wish.
Oh, no, I mean, have you?
Well, for this person, yeah. As of last Thursday, it's the same person. I was going to say,
because a lot of them, they're shifting, and they're still playing with the card.
They switched yours like 4 times, right?
4 times, and then a few other
for this pro
offers
debut?
were out, yeah.
You see, and I mean, as a fighter, having a fight coming up like that, man, I mean, how does that bother you mentally? I mean, are you thinking...
As a fighter, yeah, it's very frustrating because you're trying to game plan, and especially it being a pro fight. Now, as an amateur, you'd be like, all right, I'm going to take this fight, work my stuff, whatever. But as a pro, for me and our team, we kind of want to study the fighter and have the right game plan going in. And so with it being constantly changed, luckily the fight style has kind of been the same across all 4 opponents. So nothing too much has changed, but it is real frustrating. But at the same time, like as a just a normal human being outside of fighting, I understand things come up. COVID, we just peaked a couple weeks ago, so I know one of my opponents, I believe, tested positive. Family issues and stuff. I get it.
Right.
I don't ever want to put out bad karma, but at the same time, it is real frustrating.
No, for sure, man. And yourself, man. I mean, having worked with combat athletes this past few years, like you said, I mean, what would be your advice for somebody like Chris mentioned, man? If you see somebody that's getting knocked out and getting beat up, I mean, would you advise them to?
Man, I don't know if I could really. I don't know how much water my advice would hold. Just never being a fighter, but being in the community and like actively participating in different sports. For me, I think mental health and is huge. Like the fighters really need to take care of their mental health. From a physical aspect, I mean, I don't know. Fighters are so fucking hard-headed. Like, they're so hard-headed. Like, they're fighters, man. They're fight. You don't know anything else. Like, you're a fighter. You're gonna fight until you cannot fight. So
I can't tell you just difficult. On that note how many times he's told me, like, I'm gonna take a week off, and then like that session, he's like, all right, come here, I gotta shut. We just start going.
Yeah, fighters are so hard-headed, man. Like, it's just. I mean, and it's expected because, like I said, if you look at it, like, they're fucking fighters. Like, they're gonna fight, and they fought in other aspects of their life, and they're gonna fight until they die. Like, literally, they will die fighting, if they can. And it's just, so to tell somebody that, you can't really do that anymore, they gotta have an outlet or something set up. I would like, if it was me, I would be planning, like, okay, well, I'm gonna have, my outlet is going to be this after fighting, because my lifespan in fighting isn't gonna be that long, I'm gonna, I couldn't I'm 40 whatever 2 years old. Like I can't fight. You know, I could fight, but fuck, do I really want to fight? Like I fucking fight with Zach, and I'm like, I don't want to fight with Zach. I don't want this dude to kick me in the head. He's half my age. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to take that chance. But if I've been doing it my whole life, I might be willing. I might have the guts to do it, and you know, that's what it comes down to. But should I fucking do it? No, like no, I shouldn't fucking do it.
You're all in the kitchen making something to eat.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, or so I think having an outlet set up, I guess with saying that, like, you know, for the young fighters coming up is, you know, taking care of their mental health, having a quality, like, educated team behind them that's not fucking, like, old school mentality, pushing them to overdo themselves and overwork themselves, and taking care of their mental health is huge, you know? But they're going to want to have an outlet like Chris, for example, like transitioned from fighting and he got into coaching. And I think that's a good outlet for him because from a mental health perspective, it's helped kind of keep him in check. He's able to still physically participate in the community and groom other fighters. He's got a good knowledge base that, you know, he's been coaching me. I don't even know. Like I said, I suck at time frames, but I don't know, maybe a year. I don't know. Yeah, something like that. Coaches me. He's been coaching me for a year. I love it. He's got a ton of knowledge because he's actually been in it and done it and fought and seen these scenarios occur and worked with a lot of high caliber individuals. He stays pretty humble, like he's here on the mic, like, well, you know, yeah, I fought in California or, you know, Thailand or whatever. But he doesn't, you know, he's worked with a lot of high caliber people, so the knowledge base is there. It can't help but be there. But he's created an outlet for himself in coaching, and I think that's huge because if he didn't have that outlet right now in coaching, who knows what the fuck he'd be doing, you know? He might be depressed. He might be back at war. He might be doing something he doesn't need to do.
Right.
No, I definitely agree with that. Like, 'cause especially for guys transitioning, like, you know, from not just the Marines, but military in general, you know, a lot of guys get into jiu-jitsu or MMA just as that transition from, I mean, obviously, you know, you always hear people say, like, we're going to war, but, you know, it's not you're to fight, you know.
Right,
but it does help, you know, like, satisfy, you know, all that adrenaline that you get from being in war, you know. Obviously, it's never going to be the same, but it definitely gives guys a healthy outlet, for sure.
It's therapeutic, without a doubt. And, you know, fighting in general is therapeutic. It's huge in a fighter's life. Like, that's one thing that I've seen, like, these, like, it's make it or break it for a lot of these guys, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these guys that, you know, maybe they didn't come up super hard, but they get into fighting, they love it, and, you know, it's a comfortable life in a sense outside of fighting, so that's cool. But there is a shitload of fighters that fight because they have to fight, and it's all they've done their whole lives, and without it, like, it's like you just rip away everything that they know, and then what? And then they're stuck. It's like a Marine coming back from war, man. You take that shit away, and then he's like, what am I gonna do now?
No,
you know, so setting themselves up with an outlet or building one in the process, you know, I think is extremely huge for these guys to keep their mental health in check. You know, I mean, I could go on and on about that, man, because there's so many components to being a fighter that are both positive and negative, you know, so really learning how to balance those things is huge. I mean, you know, I do it for therapy reasons myself, because if not, then I'm snapping off on people on the fucking side of the road, you know, for no reason. And I'm 40 years old. I can't be catching a case or some stupid shit, you know. So it's just like I have to do it.
You'll be eating portion control inside.
Yeah, man. I'll be in uniform every day. Control. Yeah, I'm scared shitless of jail. I'm not trying to go there.
And I gotta ask you, man. Yeah. I mean, on that note, Chris, like, I mean, if it wasn't for this right now, like, what would you be doing, bro?
Like, if it wasn't for coaching?
Yeah, if it wasn't, like, if you would decide, like, after you stopped fighting, you were like, you know what, I'm gonna...
I don't know, honestly, I can't imagine, like, I've been doing this so long, it's like, even if I'd just be training, I guess, you know?
Right.
But, I don't know. I'm just kind of, I'm in a fortunate situation right now that where, you know, I can devote my time to coaching or training, but it would definitely... I'd probably have to find something to do with my hands, you know, like woodworking or something physical. You know, I don't think I'll never be a sit inside an office type of guy.
No, same here, man. Yeah, I mean, and I can definitely relate, man. I mean, I've never been at the scale that you guys have been or been training. But one of the things that I do like, and like you mentioned, man, it's martial arts. It is an art form. You can express yourself. I mean, coming in here, whether it's taking dancing classes or whatever, anybody going through depression or feeling down, I mean, this is a good outlet. I mean, it's got to be, right?
It is.
Go in the gym and let it out.
It is, without a doubt. You can't leave feeling like shit or angry after like jiu-jitsu or like light sparring with somebody or going in somewhere and kind of getting your ass kicked a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you're tired, you're fatigued. Like you ain't trying to beef with nobody afterwards. Like you're not sad anymore. Like those endorphins have kicked in. It's extremely therapeutic, and I think that's huge for people in general. And I think that's why some people do flock. Well, I know that's why a lot of people do flock towards MMA in general. And I think a lot more people need to do it because it's a huge outlet. Like I've always wanted to work with like boys and girls clubs. Like that's one of the things that's on my bucket list to do in our community. Or like with like juveniles, you know, in the detention center, showing them some kind of outlet. I mean, it's violent, but let's just be honest. Like people enjoy violence, you know, and you gotta be a little crazy to fight, to get it locked up in a cage with somebody and like want to exchange massive blows. Like yeah, just gotta be like even Zach's such a nice guy. Like he's such a like cool, calm. I see from the Zach that I know, you know. But there's a violent nature in him. Like there's a violent nature in like if you want to fight, like you can't. If you don't have that, stay the fuck away from fighting.
No, yeah,
because like if you don't have that edge or that craziness in you, like fighting is not for you. But you have to be able to hit a switch, or it's inside of you. And a lot of people don't know how to express that, you know, or they go and they rob places, or they create violence on the streets when you can go to your local fight club, man, and get into a gym and work with a coach who's going to show you how to channel that correctly, and you can legitimately get in fights on a daily basis. And fucking and it's so therapeutic, right? Like it's just like I got in a fight today. It also helps in the long run, right? Because when real life situations hit you outside of a fight club, you're like, man, I fight every day. I'm not trying to fight you right now. Like I'm cool, bro. Like yeah, you win. You know, it almost has an adverse effect, you know, for our community in general.
That's
that's
huge.
huge.
Me and my friend were just talking about that, about how like most fighters, because I'm young and I go out to a lot of, you know, bars and stuff, and of course there's always like
not these past few weeks though, right?
No, but there's always someone that's just looking for something, you know, and we had a conversation where it's like it's so weird how fighters are usually the most like chill people, don't want the violence, you know, and I'm pretty sure that has something to do with it.
Yeah,
you know,
I think it does without a doubt, because you're so calm in that situation. Like you've been in that fucking eye of that tornado so many times. Like, okay, it's just another fucking tornado. Like, bro, like please don't make me permanently fucking disable you right now. Like I just want to enjoy my drink. You know, so you tend to be a little bit more cautious, unless you catch them on a bad day, which sucks for you. But you tend to be a little bit more cautious, you know, outside in public, you know, and you're a nicer person because it's just like, man, why do this, you know? And I think you think about this shit, like how many of us have been like encountered somebody like in road rage where they're like, they come up next to us like, fuck you, or they throw something at our car, they're pissed off because you're going too slow, like people honking at me behind me. I'm like, bro, really? Like, and all you did was zoom around me to go to a stoplight, and then you get to the stoplight, and they're like, fuck you. I'm like, okay, you've literally never had your ass kicked before. Because like, if you did, like, I know, like, okay, if I'm flicking somebody off, I'm ready to, I gotta be ready to knuckle up. Because that's the worst case. It's dramatic, but that's the worst case scenario, right? So I'm not gonna fucking do that, because I know what it's like to be in a fight. Most people don't know what it's like to be in a fight, so those are the people that are usually the most violent out in public, or that cause the chaos in Walmart or shit like that, you know, because, and I think that could be avoided if you just got yourself into a local fight club and learn what it was like to get smacked around a little bit, and then you're like, I don't know if I want to get hit today. You know, yeah, usually they hit me with 12-ounce gloves. I'm not trying to get hit with a bare fist today, so I'll chill.
You see, and a lot of that has to do with like mental control. I mean, you've been doing it for minutes, or it's like if you go to the bar and something happens, man, I mean, are you thinking like, oh man, I don't want to...
Yeah, you're just like, you're not even angry. You're just like, man, this guy's dumb. Like, you know, he doesn't realize that he could get hurt right now.
See, unless you're Conor McGregor or Mike Perry, getting your ass whooped, get popped.
Yeah. It's a little bit of ego too. Like it kind of makes you feel good too. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like at the same time, like there's a flip side to that, right? Like you're like, yeah, I could fucking beat the shit out of this guy right now. Like, but I'm not. You know. But it also kind of, that's what helps calm you too. As weird as that sounds, like, you know, like. You're like, I know I could. More than I text these guys all the time, like random shit, like, why am I walking around HEB thinking about how I would beat up everybody in this HEB? You know, like just randomly just like being an idiot. But it's funny, but you know, there's also a part of it that's true. Like I would fucking hate to like piss Chris off in public and he didn't know me, because I would be like, well, I could probably take this guy, and then little do I know he'd snap every one of my limbs. You know what I mean? Before he put me unconscious, he was intentionally snap all of my limbs. You know, so it's like, shit. You know, you never know. So
no, I mean, especially these days, man, because there's I drive around. I'm a contractor, so I'm all over the city, and I see random people, and you never know who's training. I mean, there's signs, and then there's, the ears, of course, you're like, hey, this guy wrestles, but it's just like, I mean, you never know these days, man, and I mean, like you said, the nicest people that I've met, I mean, have been freaking cool.
The most violent. Man. The most violent.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I see them out there, man, and like Overeem, like I've met in Houston, I've met Cain Velasquez, I've met, Faber, and I've met all these guys, and it's just like, they're just like here, man, they're just chilling, and they're like, oh yeah, man, and the fact that, like you said, there's a switch. I mean, they're here, they're cool, they go in the cage, and it's like, oh shit, they flip that switch, and, I mean, it gets pretty violent, man, but, I mean, it's got to be self-control. I mean, of course, martial arts, I mean, it is a martial art, so of course, there's a lot of respect. I mean, of course, like you mentioned the other day, man, when you guys train, especially leading to a fight, you don't want to hurt each other. So there's that mutual respect that it's like, okay, you're getting ready, I'm getting ready. Let's just get a workout and get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think, the longer you do this, the less ego you have. I think that's what causes a lot of people to fight, because they have to project that they are tough. As we're guys who are trained and are they don't care.
Nothing to prove.
Yeah, it's like, I don't need to show anybody anything, so I feel like there's a lot of, the longer you train, you just lose that ego of like, you know what you can do,
Oh, for sure, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When I first started training, I started looking for places that learn how to fight, just because I was getting in street fights, and I was like, I got my ass whooped by a wrestler one time. Don't look at me. No, but this guy in Austin, and he just literally, he didn't even beat me up there. He just took me down and held me, dude, and I had no freaking idea what the hell I was doing. So I was just like, man,
I feel like that all the time, Chris.
You see, but for me, even then, it was more, I found a school here, and I said, man, I want to learn how to fight. And that before I knew it, man, it took me away from that. And like you said, I mean, I wasn't out looking for fights. I was training, and I felt good. I was just like, you know what? I didn't need to fight anymore. It's just that ego was out. And no complaints, man, because it took me away from all the violence and everything else out there.
Like in general, like it builds like huge camaraderie. Like it's nowhere near, like Chris said, it's nowhere near like being in war, but you are like soldiers together when you train together, and it builds like huge camaraderie. It helps you like understand how to respect people in general, and how to you build a mutual respect for one another. It's like love, man. Like it's like
it's because you suffer together, so you all appreciate it.
It's awesome. I have daughters that are in jiu-jitsu, and I've heard like more times than none, like especially from the grandparents, right? Like, well, why do you have them? It's violent. They're gonna get hurt, and that's not what they should be doing, and or why do you preach violence onto your kids? And because I'm always talking a bunch of shit, but I just do it in good fun, and everybody has so many feelings nowadays that they take things the wrong way. So when I do things with my daughters, like because they're in jiu-jitsu or whatever, I tell people, like, it's not to teach them to be violent. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. It's to teach them to understand when they need to be. And I got daughters, man. Like they need to learn how to defend themselves, because I'm not always going to be around. And, like no matter what, a man is a man and a woman's a woman. And if one day they get attacked by a man, they need to be comfortable in that situation, because they train with boys every day. So it's not unfamiliar to them. Like they won't be as intimidated by a man if for some odd reason, unfortunately they get attacked or something happens to them, in real life. They've already been in these situations before, and I would much rather have them feel comfortable and know how to get out of it than to freak out and freeze up and be harmed. So like people always they take it the other way, like, oh, you love violence, or you're preaching violence on your kids, or you just want to fight all the time. Like so many fucking people say that. It's like, man, it's the fucking opposite.
Anthony Ivy here the other day, man, and I mean, of course he has kids, so he was talking about how normally he's inside the cage.
Yeah, our daughters beat each other up all the time.
Yeah, but they see it, and it's a norm, and it's kind of, it's like you said, it's good, because they get, I don't want to say they get comfortable to the violence, but they get comfortable to that situation. So if they're somewhere, and one of the things, and I have daughters too, man, and one of the things I always tell them, and I've learned from self-defense and courses, is you know, when somebody attacks you, half the time they're cowards, man. So if you don't say nothing, I mean, women or men in general, whoever, you know, they freeze, they don't yell, they don't say nothing. So of course they get hurt or they get jumped or whatever. But one of the strongest things is your voice. I mean, the first thing you do is start yelling, help, help, and the coward runs, and you know that's the first thing for self-defense. It's just actually being able to have that confidence to say like, hey man, I don't want this right now, or you know what I mean. And I mean, more than half the time, people are going to cower away, man, because that's what they are. You know, especially men out there hurting women or getting themselves. Being in a situation for a woman and a man to, you know, for somebody to be abusive.
Yeah. And you have to be a good, I guess, example of it too, you know, like, you know, Chris has his son, you know, showing him like the correct way, like when and when not to be, how and how not to be, because kids are kids, they're going to pop off sometimes too, you know? So it's just, if they have a good example, I think it's really good aspect to implement into their life. It's like being healthy, you know, like be healthy. If you just show that example at home, you don't have to try to train your kid to like eat healthy, like it's just something they already do because it's what is at home, like, oh, this is normal to me,
what they've seen.
You know. So kids are always going to do what you do. They're never going to like do what they say.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like remember that. Kids will always walk, and they're always looking, and they're always paying attention, and they're always listening, no matter what you think and when you think they're not. Everything you do, they're going to do. So I kind of veering off to the left, but like when people are on their kids about fucking acting a certain way, I'm like, yo, like if you probably take a look in the mirror, that's probably how you act, man. So like,
true, man.
You know, that's a whole other story. But like, so, you know, I think just setting the good example and being a good example if you're in that community is great, and having your children in it is huge as well. Anti-bullying, all that stuff, man. So
no, yeah, and I mean, Chris, man, I mean, as far as you teaching, man, I mean, what would you say to people listening as far as if they have kids, man? I mean, this is a good outlet,
right?
You know?
Yeah, especially in this technology age, you know, I've noticed like kids just are on an electronic more than they are, you know, outside, and you know, with the obesity the way it is, like it's really important that kids get out there and train, and especially just not just for the violence or physical aspect, but I mean, I think it just teaches kids like problem solving, you know, because when you're in a stressful situation, you know, just not to just fold or not to look around for somebody to help you, but to try and figure it out on your own. You know?
That's a really good point, man. That's a really good point.
Yeah, that's what jiu-jitsu, you know, when like little kids first start, you know, and they're kind of claustrophobic and the person's on top of them and they're freaking out, you know, they have to figure out a way, you know, to realize, one, okay, you're not dying, you know, you're going to be okay. And then two, you know, deal with the situation, you know. So it's super important in that aspect.
No, for sure, man. I mean, I know growing up, I mean, you grew up in Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I grew up here in San Antonio, man, and I mean, I'm probably older than all you guys. But I mean, for us growing up, I mean, the whole, like, being home and telling mom, oh, I'm tired. Oh, you're tired? And they put you to work till you were tired, man. So, I mean, the fact that you said, I mean, having the kids outside or having them inside working out, you know, rather than stuck to the phone or just a computer, man, all day. I mean,
especially if you, as a parent, do it as well. It's a good way for you and your child. Me and my son, I'm telling you, not one day has gone by that we do not like wrestle or fight. Not one single day. Like,
how old is your kid?
He's 8 now.
Oh wow, cool.
And I mean, literally, as soon as he comes home, it's like round 1 million. You know? So it's like, and someday I'm tired, you know, and I complain, and my wife's like, "He's like that because of you." And I'm like, it's because I'm like, I hear him running up the stairs, and I know, like, okay, I have to fight.
Ding ding.
Yeah.
My little one's always trying to armbar everybody. She's always trying to show people she can do an armbar. It's like her favorite move, so she's like always trying to armbar people. But no, he's right. Yeah, like they're like that all the time, and it's cool. Like it's cool for us, but it's kind of weird to other people. I think sometimes too. Right? You know, other people are like that. That's when you get like kind of the looks and the frowns. Like,
you teaching your kid.
Yeah, it's like, well, like can you not tell your kid to beat my kid up? Well, can you fucking put your kid in a jiu-jitsu class? Like, how about that?
You know, how to defend the armbar.
Yeah, man, something. But no, I think fitness is huge, man. Like it's a huge obesity epidemic. I make some shirts that say "fuck obesity" on them. They get a lot of like.
And they went in a 3X, by the way.
They get a lot of frowns. I'm getting some more printed right now. Actually, I'm getting about 80 shirts printed right now, of a couple different designs. But one of them is. That's huge, man. Like that's what was one of the big things when I started LionFitFoods too. Was just, I mean, I grew up in the South Side, where, eating habits aren't fucking, they're not at the top. They're not like, it's not like, everybody's eating arroz con pollo and mole and whatever every day. And that's cool, man. That's like, that's us. That's, we're Latinos and that's how we eat and that's great. But, then there's no portion control. There's no like real health conscious aspects of eating. And that's okay. But it creates a lot of health issues. And then we end up losing family members and friends and over things that are controllables in life, man, and obesity is one of them. Like, we choose to be obese, and it's not something like we choose to be type 2 diabetic. Like, those are actual fucking choices. Yeah. And when people complain about them, it's like, understand that that's a controllable in your life, and you can actually change that. And even if you still have it and you're 50 or 60 years old, you can still get out of it. You can still change your life. And the unfortunate thing is that there's a lot of closed-minded people where I grew up at that just, and it's because there's a lot of aspects that go into that, generations on generations of like teached and learned habits and activities, but doesn't mean that we can't start breaking the cycle. And like my approach towards breaking the cycle, like with LionFitFoods, was like saying things like, well, fuck obesity to get people's attention, because I can say fuck cancer all day and people applaud me, but if I say fuck obesity, people are like, oh, what's the deal?
Like, where's my plate?
Bro, like, like, what's wrong with you? Like, oh my God, I've had people try to fight me over that shit, and I'm just like, man, well, now that I got your attention, let me explain to you why, but it's about, I'm actually, it's like the opposite. Like, I'm concerned with my people and my community. Yeah. And I need to teach you that that's why I make videos on how to like make healthy drinks and meals at home. And that's why I make like mole, but from a healthy aspect, or like chicken mole enchiladas, but I put a healthy spin on there. You know what I mean? To try to teach people how to do these things in our community so we can fight obesity. But there's such a stigma on it, like there is on mental health, that it's just people, they it's just too much pushback on it right now, and I think it's going to take a long time. It may not ever change, I don't know, but whatever I can do to kind of implement myself into teaching like the next generation, which is our children right now, healthy eating and lifestyle habits, food and fitness, that's my plan. So
no, for sure, man, and you're doing it. I mean, obviously you've been doing it for years, man. So I mean, educating the fighters, educating people that are out there willing to listen, because like you said, I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, myself, it is an issue with portion control when it comes to me, because I go home and my mentality is like, man, I gotta go home and eat. Mm-hmm. I've worked hard all day. I want to go home, and that's my my reward. And I've done better throughout the years, but it's different when you're working out and you're burning these calories. But when you're not, and you go home and you can still keep that same eating habit, it's just not good, man.
And you're driving all day, you said, right? Yeah. So you're sitting down, so it's not really a lot high caloric burn there. See, I just start thinking like this, man. I'm like, well, fuck, well, this, You see, so it's more about education, because it's not necessarily that people don't want to change. Like in my community, like I said, I grew up on the south side of town, man, and it's not necessarily that people don't want to change there. It's more that they're like, more times, 9 out of 10 times, people are like, well, what do I do? Yeah. Like, that question is huge, man. Like, well, what do I do? Like, they literally don't, like, it's a state of unconscious incompetence. Like, they do not know what to do. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, a lot of people will think, like, they're too prideful to be like, I don't know what the fuck to do. Like, and then, they don't want to ask for help. But education is huge, like, in especially, like, low-income households. Like, you can get, like, $800 worth of free food from the state every month. You don't have to buy the fucking sodas and chips and like Little Debbie fucking cupcakes and stuff. Like, you can make a choice to buy better things with that stuff. You know how much fruits and veggies and shit I could buy with all that money? Give me $800 a month. I'm down. Like, I'll show you how to shop. I've told people that more times than none. I've gone with people to H-E-B and shit and been like, I will show you how to shop. Like, you're getting free money from the state. Like, let me show you, from the government, let me show you how to use this to, it doesn't have to be like all super healthy, so I think education is huge, man. I get real passionate about that shit because I've seen, like, I've lost family members from like obesity, diabetes, heart disease. All these things stem from just being overweight. Yeah, like an unhealthy overweight, because I know a lot of people who are overweight but like still lead really healthy and active lives. The longevity is there for them because they're being health conscious in their in their life. But it's a choice, man. And I think San Antonio really needs to wake up and start paying attention to that and start making a choice
Oh, for
ourselves
sure,
and our
man.
children, you know. So.
Yeah, and I mean, let me get to you, Zach, because I mean, of course, you have this pro debut coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's talking about food, and of course, I'm sure you're hungry, bro. But,
I'm just thinking of all the stuff that the Debbie cakes and sounds
man,
real good.
But I mean, come fight time, I mean, like you said, the week of, you're down to 2 meals a day.
Two big meals and then some snacks in between. You know, I say like only 2 meals, but they're just bigger portion meals. You know, I'll do like a breakfast, a small lunch, and then a decent sized dinner.
And because of your schedule, like your training schedule, like when do you eat? Like a breakfast and then a lunch, and that's it, or how does that work?
So like these last 2 weeks, I've been doing a lot more stuff fasted. So like my breakfast won't come until after my first workout. Whether that be a yoga session, whether that be a strength conditioning session, a pad session, wrestling session. So that'll come usually around 11. And then I'll get another meal in before my second training session, so that comes around 3 or 4. I'll get some protein in between that, and then I'll finish up after. Once I'm done training for the day, I'll get another meal in. I'm trying not to eat too late, just because I want my body holding it, you know. But yeah, it's kind of how.
And I mean, you mentioned earlier, as far as your meals of choice, I mean, once everything's done, you're gonna go out there and get your grub on. But I mean, when it comes to eating healthy, I mean, having somebody like LionFit, helping you, and of course Chris, getting you putting you through the grind. I mean, how much is that of your mental game right now? Like, I mean, are you, can you fight tomorrow? Let me put it that way. I mean, do you feel that strong right now that you can?
Yeah, for sure. I think working with Gino's really helped me outside of my 4 or 5 weeks of strict dieting, because I feel so well outside of a fight camp. I'm not. There's been times before where I've ballooned up and I'll say, oh, I'm trying to bulk or something, but it's just my excuse that I'm putting behind it,
Stay
But
That's my winter weight. I always tell people
Yeah.
I keep it year round because you never know, man.
you
Might
never
get
know
cold.
what it can change. But working with Gino's just made me feel a lot more confident in being able to diet down, just feeling good. That's been the big thing that I've noticed, is just having the right nutrients in me to train. And of course, when you feel good, you're ready to do a fight, whatever it may
Perform
be.
better, man. And of course, this fight is going to be at 185.
Yeah.
What were you weighing at 2 weeks ago, man?
I was kind of hanging around like the 210, 205 mark.
So it's still pretty-
Nothing too big. Of course, you'll kind of get up. It depends. 205, 210 was pretty much average though.
No. And I mean, you got to work out with him this morning, man. When it comes to your training, what is it that you concentrate on for him? I mean, coming up to the fight.
I mean, we watch the opponent, kind of game plan a little bit, but I mean, we kind of do a little bit of everything, because I mean, even though wrestling is my background, striking is what I like teaching the most. So we kind of just try and mix in, because he is already a good striker with the karate background.
Right.
So we just try and mix that in, for him to defend takedowns from his stance, or adding striking into the takedowns, stuff like that, really.
And of course, scenarios, man. I mean, being against the cage. I mean, what do they call it? Cage work?
Yeah, the cage work is huge. I'm starting to see a lot more guys use it, especially I guess in Texas. It didn't seem like it was too big, but it's definitely it could be its own martial arts in itself. People don't realize that, because they see it and they're like, when you're watching that, it looks boring, right? But it's honestly the most technical aspect of fighting. Yeah, and it just drains you.
To keep someone against the cage in itself, is a lot of
hard.
work.
Yeah.
No, I mean, definitely.
Wrestling and grappling is just tough, man. It's so taxing on the body, and so going from boxing and then getting into MMA, wrestling for somebody for the first time, is I thought I had gas in my tank, and I was just like, damn, and that's what was really eye-opening for me, just in general, was realizing how much gas it takes to wrestle. For me, wrestling, I think, is the hardest. For me personally, wrestling is the hardest part of MMA.
I'd agree.
Yeah,
especially if you don't have a wrestling background.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially if you're learning, or if you're a striker and you're getting out wrestled. I mean, there's a lot of energy being
and it's so important, because it's the median between the fucking standing up and the ground.
Yeah.
And I think too,
that's the in between stage.
Having a striking background, just having that wrestling knowledge, gives you so much more confidence with your striking. You know what I mean? Because coming in, of course, I worked with a wrestling coach before Chris and my little jiu-jitsu practice, but like it was always in the back of, what if I get taken down? What if I get taken down? And now I feel a lot more comfortable with knowing how to defend, and if I do get taken down, knowing how to work my way up. You know, so that it just gives your confidence level a whole bunch more.
And Chris is sharp, man. Mm-hmm. Chris is fucking smart. Like,
yeah, you see, and the fact that, I mean, you got to train with Team Quest, man. I mean, back in the day when wrestling was getting big with the Raw team, it was a Hammer House. I mean, you got all these wrestling teams coming in, and
Quest was really like a heavy wrestling based gym. The cage work was, you know, something that was really huge as well.
I think the day I take Chris down, I'm just gonna fucking stop. I'm gonna drop the mic and I'm out.
Retire.
That's it. I'm done. It's a wrap.
Like, so in other words, never, right? You're still gonna keep training, man.
Bro. But you know, working with Chris, like we you know, when we start from the feet, not just me and him, but just in general, when I go to classes and stuff, like jiu-jitsu classes, and we start from the feet, I can see how much better I've got. Like with Chris, like I'm still getting my ass whooped every day, right? But then I go with somebody else and I realize, oh, I can stay on my feet the whole fucking 6 minutes if I want to. Like, you gotta out wrestle me in order to get me to the ground, and that makes me feel great. Like, I feel good. Like, I'm like, shit, these guys got fights coming up, or like whatever. Like, he's had some amateur fights, or these guys have been training a lot longer than me. And in this little time that I work with Chris, like, I feel so good, you know. I'm like, this really helps the confidence level a lot.
Gino and I just rode last Friday.
Oh, we did, yeah.
And I got him on a single leg, which I usually finish on him, you know.
Yeah.
And this dude is like hopping around, defending. He's putting. I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's
like,
crazy.
Doing,
I did some rolling yesterday, man, and I had some. They purposely paired, like, our instructor told us to, like, told the higher belts to go with the white belts, because I'm still a white belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm like cocaine, no stripes, man. Like, I don't attend enough classes either or whatever, so I'm going with, like, these blue belts, and we got to start at the feet, and I went 3 rounds, and I never got taken down, and I felt fucking great. I was like, well you got to get me to the ground first, and, like, the guy sits on his butt, and I'm like, no, bro, like, I'm not, you got to earn this shit. Get up, man. Like, you know, kind of messing with him, and I was like, nah, you got to earn it, bro. You got to take me down, man. So it just makes me feel good, man, because I've just been getting beat up for like a whole year by this dude, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, the more you show up, the more you learn, man. Yeah. Now let me ask you, because you did come from wrestling, bro. I mean, what do you think about what he said? I mean, when it comes to a grappling match and somebody starts butt scooting, I mean, as a wrestler, is that kind of like, man? Like,
yeah, I don't respect that. You know, for sure, it's an aspect of the game, so you need to be able to deal with it. But I mean, I don't agree with it.
But force you to deal with it, right? Like, you want to be forced to deal with it. You don't want to just have to walk into it. Like, that's how I felt the past time too.
I think it's something that a lot of jiu-jitsu schools need to address, you know. I mean, obviously, if there's space, not enough space, and everyone can't start off on the feet. But I think this starting from the knees thing is, you know, hindering a lot of people from learning wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because it's like, and it's also just not realistic, you know.
No, yeah. I mean, we see those videos out there with people, you know, like, you want something, get him a guard, and they're scooting. And it's
like on the street, you know.
And I got to say that because when I first started, I mean, we did start from the knee. When they came to, like, no-gi, that was more or less when we started doing, like, actual wrestling and doing takedowns. I'd rather stunt from the feet. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've been a guard guy, and I can play the guard game, but it's just, it was never... I guess that was later on in the years, man.
Yeah.
Like, that was, you know, we didn't do that back then. That's kind of awkward now. But
you still rolling now? Do you still roll now?
No, the only thing I fight these days is traffic, bro. That's it. I mean, I don't fight. I don't do anything, man. But it's just, I mean, but even back then, man. I mean, like, one of the good things that I've personally noticed is, I mean, we were in the team, and I started going to Corpus. I started going to Dallas, going to Austin. I started training with other people. And being able to hold my own, I was just like, damn, like, okay, I got something, man. I wasn't great, but I mean, I would roll with purple belts. I'd roll, you know, and it was just, I was able to, not just offense, but defense, and they'd be like, damn, dude, that was pretty dope, man. And that's just, it boosts your confidence, man, because, of course, you know, you want to get out there and get better, add more to the game. I mean, since you started training, of course, grappling, man, I mean, what all have you learned, man? I mean, what else have you added throughout the years for yourself?
Well, I've always grappled. I've grappled since I was like 13 or 14, just because in our traditional Japanese system there is a lot of ground fighting. It was with the gi though, so of course it's a little bit different in the sense with grips and stuff like that. But ever since I've been doing a lot more wrestling and no gi stuff, I just feel, you know, a lot more knowledgeable is the main thing. I know it sounds kind of simple, but there's some times that I've been in positions where I'm like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? And having the knowledge that I do now, I'm able to work my way out or work to a better position. So that's one thing. But also, too, my top pressure, I've always kind of liked the guard game as well, especially in a gi.
Right.
I have longer legs, so it's a little bit more easier to get some stuff off. But I feel like my top pressure is really improved, and I haven't really been able to show it in fighting as much, but I do think it's there, and I've been practicing a lot, especially for this camp, just because my opponents have been such a toss-up. I've been working everything, and I feel really confident with that. So hopefully these next couple of fights, you'll see a little bit more of an evolved fighter out of me, and that's kind of my plan.
You see, and one of the things, because you had mentioned you had actually trained with the UFC heavyweight champion, right?
Yeah.
At one point,
Francis.
and his last game, his last fight, he actually took down his opponent, and for him, the fact that he was training with Usman, I kind of expected that. I was like, well, he's got to be working on his ground or his wrestling, right? But
I think though that stemmed from the Stipe fight, because Stipe does have a wrestling background, and when I was there, like he had a whole session before our sparring session of nothing but wrestlers, and it was funny because when we got there, it was like they were working in the cage and they were feeding him. They would see the man, you look like you can wrestle, get in there, and they would throw him in there with him, and this was again before the Stipe fight even got announced when I was there. So I knew like he was working his wrestling. It was a lot more defense stuff, but of course, like I said, the more knowledgeable you are in the actual art, the more you can apply.
Right.
And so it's crazy, man, to see that and how much the game's evolving.
No, and of course, because you come from striking, of course you did some grappling, but now that you're getting better at wrestling, like you said, you feel more comfortable if you're finding somebody to be able to keep the feet on the fight on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel more comfortable with that now, that you can actually dictate the fight a little bit better?
I do, but I think before in the past, it was a lot more of like, just don't go to the ground. Don't go to the ground, and now I feel like if it goes to the ground, I'm okay. I know some stuff and can either work my way up, or if an opportunity presents itself on the ground to finish the fight, then I can do that as well.
That's huge, man.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's such a confidence booster because you can tell when a fighter's timid to strike because they're afraid of a takedown. You know what I mean? And it just changes the game completely when you have that confidence. So
because you're finding somebody that doesn't want to get taken down. It takes that from him. Now he doesn't want to throw kicks. Now he doesn't want to engage to where he'll leave himself open. And I gotta ask, because you were training with Dan Henderson, one of the fights, it was Randy Couture, and he had lost his belt, and I think he lost it to Barnett at that time, but he was saying that that he lost it because he was starting thinking more of like a jiu-jitsu guy. Mm-hmm. And as a wrestler, have you found yourself in that situation where you're like, okay, now you're playing the guard game and you're thinking, man, what am I doing?
The first thing I noticed is that I stopped. If a guy got in on a takedown, like my scrambling, I'd be like, you know what, it's okay if I go to my back. Like I do feel like that that aspect hurt me, like to where I kind of got away from like, I can't get taken down, but because of the jiu-jitsu, I got so comfortable. I'm like, it's not a big deal. And even granted, it's good. Even if you're competent on an MMA fight, you just don't want to be on your back.
Right.
For point wise, it just looks bad. So, I feel like that definitely happened to me, to where, especially as I stopped training wrestling as much, because like I said, wrestling was just so brutal. So when I fully transitioned to MMA, I kind of stopped just doing specific wrestling. Like I still wrestled, but it was part of like MMA practice or jiu-jitsu. But I stopped, really just wrestling. And the better I got at jiu-jitsu, the worse my takedown defense became. So I always tell guys, especially when wrestlers, I tell wrestlers when they get into MMA, especially real good wrestlers, I'm like, guys, do not quit wrestling. Like if that's the one piece of advice I can give you, if you're a good wrestler, not saying you have to wrestle 5 days a week anymore, but you definitely should devote, at least 1 day a week of pure wrestling. Just like you train jiu-jitsu in a jiu-jitsu class, you should train your wrestling, pure wrestling, just to keep it sharp, because it's definitely a super perishable skill, you know.
No, for sure, man. Especially you've been doing it for years, man. I mean, like they say, you stop using it, you lose it, man. After a while.
Yeah. Like even though I still train, I mean, I don't wrestle anymore, but like going with like a lot of these younger guys, it kind of it still helps me keep my takedown defense, you know, okay, you know.
And since he's not here, man, how good is his wrestling, bro? Tell me, man, before he gets back.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good. I mean, he's gotten a takedown on me maybe once. Yeah.
And of course, I mean, him actually, like he said, he's adding to his craft, man. He's actually getting better. I mean, you've been doing it for over a year, you said?
I've been working with Chris for over a year. I work with Chris, and then I work over at Ultimate Submission Academy, and I guess I'm a little bit of a fucking gym whore because I work at Brazilian Top Team too. But I'm really good friends with Ray Rodriguez. He's one of the first fighters that I sponsored. I'm a strength and conditioning coach, so I'm there every Tuesday and Thursday at Ultimate Submission. He's an amazing coach too, man. Like, he's super intricate. Like, the way he articulates jiu-jitsu is awesome. Like, he's really good at doing that. And he's a complete opposite style of Chris. So like when I work with Chris, like it's almost like I have two people kind of almost telling me opposite things.
Right.
But my style, like, naturally is more like Chris size wise. Like I want to fucking just smash people, crush and choke people. Like, I just applying pressure. I think working with Chris, there's no way anybody comes out of a camp not being better on pressure. Like, you can't, like, you just become a monster at right? Like, having pressure on people, which is fucking huge, because like so many times, like, you get away from giving that space in jiu-jitsu or wrestling, and that's huge for a fighter in general, you know. And then, like I said, Ray on the other side is a little bit more like involved in like technique aspects and really good at kind of like explaining that, and him too being in a high caliber fighter, fighting in the UFC a couple times, really helps that as well. But I forgot what the fuck the question was.
Oh, no, I was just saying as far as your wrestling, man, because I mean you've been doing it for a year. But my question is, I mean, when I started, I mean, our instructor was a big dude. I mean, he was like 240, 250. Yeah. So it changes, like you said. I mean, that's a good point, because Ray's a lot lighter. I mean, no offense. Yeah. No, but I'm saying, I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, you see, but there's a lot more like little guy jiu-jitsu type stuff that he can teach that somebody else can.
There's different body type for jiu-jitsu.
Not
saying that like he couldn't do like the 10th planet, you know, all that stuff, but
the huggy choke.
You know, and then there's also like MMA jiu-jitsu, where it's just more for position, not, you know, so much submissions and stuff. And then, you know, so body types, you know, definitely help what type of jiu-jitsu you should gravitate. Just like with striking, you know. If you're a little short, stubby guy, you shouldn't be like trying to fight all long, you know, like
trying to fight like a heavyweight.
Yeah, you know.
You see, but
I just got lucky, man. I fell into some good hands. Like, I got lucky. That's it.
I mean, of course. I mean, man. I mean,
if it was 20 years ago, I'd be fucking fighting professionally. If it was 20 years ago, surrounded by I would be like Zach. I'd be trying to fucking fight right now. If it was 20 years ago, for sure, yeah, I'd be like, hell yeah, because I mean, like I said, the people in our community right now, I think are awesome, man, and they're just getting better. Like, they're just getting better, and I see everybody working together, like Ambush and BTT and Ultimate Submission, and you know, his dojo. Like, everybody's kind of working together, man, and everybody's. So,
and I will say
that's
too,
huge. That's huge.
That I think that's been encouraged from the coaches, you know, because when I first was doing this, it was like everything was so secretive. It felt like you had to like know what time to be there and what time, you know, who was gonna be there, what was he gonna go, because if he's gonna go. And it seems like within the past year, man, it's just everyone's kind of like put the bullshit aside and just said, look, if we want to get better, we got to start collaborating a lot more.
I think Chris has had a huge impact on that. I think Chris has really impacted that specific aspect
some relationships,
of connecting the community, even without even knowing. Like, I think he's had a huge
funny
punch
you say
on that.
that.
Him and Ray, actually.
Because when I was training, and even, I mean, I was already leaving the game as far as like going in there, but I mean, there was teams. And like you said, everybody was kind of hush-hush, and it was like that, man. Like, I would talk to somebody, and they'd be like, oh, hey, man, you know, we'll meet up afterwards, because don't tell nobody, but I'm going to go train with so-and-so for a while. And I'm like, okay, you know, but it was like nobody really talked about it, and now it's a lot more open. It was being done before, but it wasn't as open as it is now. Everybody's posting video and footage, and, you know, and it's a good thing, because we talked about, Houston, I mean, we talked about San Antonio being, I don't want to say late in the game.
Yeah.
But
it is. Let's be
well,
honest.
it was because, like you said, everybody was secretive, man.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, oh, man, it's my team. Like, you can't. Yeah. And now it's opened up, and it's there's a buzz, man, and I'm excited about it. I'm local, and I'm you know, I want to bring the UFC back over here. I want to bring Bellator back over here. I want to bring like all these promotions just because we have enough people to fill up a whole freaking prelim card if they need it. You know, guys to fill up the main card.
I mean, if you look next week, there's 2 Saturday and Sunday fight card that is just filled with San Antonio talent. You know, the P card all the way up in Arkansas.
Oh yeah, bro.
It's got what 10 San Antonio fighters. Like, you know, it's
and from Texas in general too. I mean, there's a lot of San Antonio fighters on that card. So that's pretty.
I think Eric over at Fury too. He's been like, I don't know. I think in general for Texas, he's been making like a big splash, and he's putting together card after card after card, and becoming a big feeder into the UFC. I think that dude's doing some really cool things for fighters in general. You know, on the surface, at least from what I know, like from what I can see, you know, standing outside.
I got to shout out Eric, man, because he has like, hey, your opponent dropped, give me 2 hours, I'm going to find you, you know, and that's hard to do over a course of 5 different people, you know, so.
I mean, people talk about wanting to be a promoter and a matchmaker. I'm
that dude's a hustler, bro. That dude does everything. That dude does everything. He fucking sets up, he breaks things down, he puts cards together, he talks to people, he does everything.
Oh yeah, like, I mean, it is his baby. I mean, that is his company, man. So the fact that he stands behind it, that's freaking awesome, dude. I mean, hell yeah. And I will say this, man, because now, like you said, I mean, he's actually bringing more promotions out. But I think obviously he's able to do that because of people like you guys. I mean, there's people that want to fight, that want to compete. I mean, he can come to San Antonio once a month, and I guarantee you there's a whole different card every time, dude, because there's that many people ready. You know, you can mix match. I mean, bring Austin, bring South Texas out here. I mean, it's going to get better, man. I'm looking forward to this year. Let me ask you, because of COVID and everything, you know, everything got shut down 2019, 2020, opened up, and 2021. But do you think that has something to do with people cross-training a lot more now, too? I mean, people are kind of like, man, we're kind of a year behind. Like, that's...
Yeah. I think, you know, guys started hitting each other up. You know, like, for me, like, my garage, like, is, like, fully matted and stuff. So, like, I've called guys, the few that I knew, you know, that I met. And that's how I met, like, Anthony Ivy and started working with them. They started coming to my house during COVID time. Yeah. And, you know, guys just got tired of not being able to train. Everyone just was like, hey, let's get together and train, you know. So.
Yeah, that was huge. I did the same at my house. I had like people from Ohana and like Ultimate Submission, like people I didn't know shit, and they just were coming over. I just had a little gym at my house, and we're just beating each other up and like getting a workout in, you know.
You see, I probably freak out. I mean, I don't train at my house, but I mean, I freak out when somebody goes and knocks on my door. I'm like, oh, fuck, like, I didn't invite nobody, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, you guys open your doors, you know, for people to be able to come in and cross-train and get the help that they need. I mean, when it comes, I mean, you're not only teaching wrestling, you're also doing, like you said, like MMA wrestling or MMA jiu-jitsu, MMA concepts. You know, you're throwing that stuff in there. What can you say about this guy, man? I mean, he's going to fight in a week. You know, what do you think, man? What are you thinking?
I'm probably thinking body kick knockout. That's what I'm predicting. Guy kicks amazing, you know, and I think if he kicks in a way that it can deter people from wanting to take him down, from wanting, you know, to be close, you know. So that's what maybe head kick. I don't know.
There you go.
I'm gonna pull guard, man.
Yeah, that's what I said. Now he's gonna go for a takedown. Now he's gonna go for a takedown and be like.
Every fight we've worked together, we'll talk about the fight and what we're gonna open up with, and I'm like, I'm gonna just jump guard. We'll take it to
the butt scoop. There you go. Just chase him around for the cage for a while. Man, I mean, I want to thank you guys. I mean, I don't want to keep you much longer, man. Zach, I mean, of course, thank you for stopping by, bringing Chris with you, and Gino, man, thank you guys. I'm going to plug in your business, of course. I'm going to bring you back just so we can actually talk more on that. Cool. Best of luck. Come fight week.
Appreciate it. Yes.
And thank you, bro. Thank you. And I definitely want to bring you back in here, man.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, and it's the first time here, so I don't normally charge for parking, but just a heads up, next time I'm going to have to start charging. But everybody out there, man, I mean, thank you guys for stopping in. This is Spider here at the Fight Card Podcast. As always, follow up and subscribe. Thank you.
Awesome.
There you go, gentlemen.
I'm fucking starving, bro.
I can't hold my fist in no more, bro. I was like,
I was gonna